I think what he's trying to say is the Avengers Infinity War spoiler cast starts now.
Right now. It's okay. It's okay.
Hey, Geek fans, I'm Steve.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Sippy, and oh geez.
It's finally here. We are here because we've seen it.
So much emotion, we can't even talk, right?
I know, we can't even talk about it.
All right, we are
my
here
gosh.
for, you guessed it, Infinity War. Now, this first part,
Spoiler
it's
free.
safe to watch. Spoiler free. So, spoiler free thoughts, Chris.
I was really impressed. I think this movie really shows how the Marvel studio has matured. It's a very complicated story. There's so many characters, and they handled it all really well. So I was very impressed with that.
Sippy.
Very similar feelings to Chris, actually. I was not sure how they were going to work with all of the characters, but nobody felt like a secondary character to me. Nobody felt like they were getting shafted for something else. I felt like everyone had their spotlight, and friggin' Josh Brolin killed it as Thanos.
He was amazing. He was the point where the emotion on his face at times it was so strong.
And that's to the VFX artist. Credit to you guys.
And back to one little point you made there. I feel like in the past sometimes that Marvel will rely heavily on, particularly usually Iron Man, to be like the tent pole to carry this. It wasn't that way at all.
No.
This was, everybody was equal on the playing field, and what you saw was just amazing.
Yep. So.
All right, well, my thoughts are not very dissimilar from your guys'.
Oh, good.
It was awesome. It blew me away. I felt like it was an incredibly well-balanced movie. Yes.
Yeah.
Just that, and it was a movie that could only be told after 18 other movies. Because you didn't need to find out who any of these people were. These are old friends, you're showing up for an adventure, and they did not waste any time with anything superfluous. Everything in that movie, to me, felt like it had meaning. It's going to either, it's paying off something from before, or it's going to pay off later.
It was very tight. Like you said, the storytelling was very tight. And what I think also you said, this wasn't something that you could just do right at the very beginning. I feel like that's kind of what DC wanted to do, is have this big, huge thing but this had the characters, you knew their quirks, you knew who they were, so they didn't even have to talk about that. So when you saw them actually in action, you knew how they were going to behave.
Well, and you knew how they were going to play off of each other in certain circumstances too. Like, I was always excited to see what would happen when you put Doctor Strange and Iron Man in a room together.
And it went exactly how I thought it was going to
because
go.
you knew them so well. You're just like, oh, it's beautiful. Well, my brother, he called me this morning and he saw it last night and was like, hey, I'm not going to tell you any spoilers, but I will tell you one thing. This movie will make you like Justice League less. And I was like, well, it wasn't my favorite movie to begin with. And then after seeing it, I was like, oh, God, he's totally right. Because I can see what could have been if they had taken more time.
If I were to offer just one criticism, though, just one criticism.
Let's hear it. I'm excited.
Here we go. I'm just going to whisper it to Chris. Okay. Is that I feel like there might be some casual Marvel moviegoers who don't necessarily appreciate what happens. Because when you okay, actually, right there, whatever I'm about to say is not safe.
All right, this is not safe zone anymore.
I will say this: this movie had a little bit of a deviation from the Marvel formula. Most Marvel popcorn movies, they're super fun. Let's think of like Thor Ragnarok. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy. When you leave, you're hyped, you're pumped, and you're like, oh my gosh!
You're hooked on a feeling.
You want to immediately U-turn and go right back in the theater. This one, still, they kind of pulled back on the humor a little bit. This was the opus. It was a little more. It was very serious, and which made it fun. Though for my wife, who's a casual observer of the Marvel Universe, she noticed that. She's like, well, this is a lot different than what the other ones had been like. So I thought that was something to kind of be prepared for when you go see it.
All right,
that's pretty much what I was going to say, but you said it much safer than I did.
Oh, I think the word you're looking for is eloquent.
More attractive, maybe? Is that what we're going for? All right, now let's go.
Much more attractive.
Now let's go into spoiler territory. So if you have not seen the movie, end it here, because we are going to get into deep, deep spoiler stuff. So let's start. Let's start with.
You have to be. You like to go in spoiler free, so just be sure.
Especially with this movie.
Yeah. So don't watch. Come back.
Thanos demands your silence.
Yes.
Okay. So first off, let's talk about surprises. What surprised you most? No, Chris gets to go first.
No, let's let him go. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Fine.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Red Skull.
I know, right?
What?
I know, right?
That was nuts.
Oh, That blew my mind when he pulls his thing, and you're just like, oh, there he is.
You've been waiting for him
Oh,
to come
yes.
back. Because ever since Captain America, because when he disappears with the Tesseract, and he kind of like goes away. You're like, is he gonna come back? And then they got to the point where he's kind of tuck it away, you forget about it, and when he showed up, you're like,
Oh,
what
it was
is
such
going
a
on?
great moment.
Yeah.
When you see his face, and then there's some journey he's been on for the last 70 years that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
That has taken him to that place. I mean, then he's there floating, and then he kind of comes down. Like when he says about the burden of the knowledge and the wisdom that he's gained.
Yes.
It's like, oh, dude, this guy knows some stuff.
Yes.
Oh, it was awesome.
He's seen.
Yeah,
So
and the other one that was really surprising to me was Thanos. Actually, he was a very complex
Oh my
character.
gosh.
I
He's
think
awesome.
of Thanos as just you think of him as a world destroyer going in and just like no emotion. It was not the case at all.
Oh,
And
no.
That threw me. I had empathy for him as a character. I was like, this guy, he really truly believes what he's doing is right. He believes that what he's doing is right, and that came across so strong. It was surprising to me.
Oh, that part where spoiler alert,
Yeah.
where he kills Gamora. And that when you see it on his face the moment they talk about the thing that he loves. And she thinks, oh, he doesn't love anything.
Yeah.
And then when he turns to her, I mean, I was almost getting choked. I'm like, this is the bad guy. But I felt his pain. And then when Mantis does the thing when she's touched, and she says how anguished he is.
Yes.
And then again, at the end, when he has that little vision of the young Gamora, and she asks what it took, and he says, it cost everything.
Cost me everything.
That was, for me, in that one appearance, that put him at the top of the pantheon
Of villains?
of the Marvel villains, hands down.
Agreed
Yep.
with that. Exactly. And then the thing about a movie is that's only as good as a villain can really be. And I think they knew that, and Thanos was amazing. 100%.
So I know the movie's called Avengers: Infinity War, but this was Thanos' story.
It was.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you learn that, you see just how genius this movie truly was,
Right.
and how good the Russo brothers did with directing it.
Right.
You know that
They had a lot of moving parts.
a ton of moving parts, and he had to. I mean, the directors had to nail, the Guardians, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, and I never felt like any of them were trying to be something they weren't, you
Right,
know?
agreed.
Like when you introduce the Guardians, they're listening to Rubber Band Man, it was great. They
It was
did
exactly
such a
how
good job.
each character, they didn't deviate from how they were established and just let them even be better. For me, some things that were kind of surprising in this, of course, there's all this hype.
Tons.
And we talked about this before. Everybody thought Captain America was going to die.
Yeah,
And I
he
thought Captain
didn't.
America was going to die, and I thought that or Iron Man
Iron
was
Man.
going to die. And the fact that neither one of them died was a shock to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And when it happened, when you saw when Bucky, Winter Soldier died, and then Falcon died, I was like, that's Captain America's replacement.
Yeah.
How can
Yeah.
they
They're
die?
gone.
And it's like
And then it kept
going.
So
and they didn't play it off where everyone's gone. You got to feel every
Each-
single person as they disappeared.
Yeah, and so like we said, this is spoiler heavy. Almost everybody
yeah.
dies.
No, the only ones who so what happens
Okay,
here
no
is
original Avengers. We don't know about Hawkeye because he's not in the movie.
Right.
But no original Avengers died.
Right.
no, all phase one's in.
Yeah.
But so Thanos, he gets all the stones, snaps his fingers, and half the universe is wiped out.
And the way he describes it is half the universe is wiped out, and there's no judgment. It's rich and poor, and it's just the luck of the draw. Are you going to be killed or not? And it was sad to me because my favorite group is not the Avengers. My favorite group's the Guardians of the Galaxies, and every one of them died except for Rocket.
Except for Rocket.
And Nebula.
Oh, Nebula, that's right, yeah. And she's a pseudo.
I know, it
she's
kinda
pseudo,
really-
See, and I thought for sure when they're going to that moment that Quill would be left standing. And so the second that he started saddest point in the movie for me, Spider-Man.
my wife.
Oh
started
my
to cry.
gosh!
Same with my
like
wife.
I thought the scene with Thanos and Gamora that got me. That really did because as a father, I was just like, oh, I can understand his pain.
Right.
But when Spider-Man grabs on to Tony and he's like, I don't want to go. I was like,
It was.
my Spider-Man's dying.
It
That
was-
was sucked. Oh,
It was so emotional, and you could see at that moment because I think we forget Spider-Man's a child.
Yeah.
We forget that, and when he was confronted and when he started to die, his childhood came.
Yeah.
He was a boy, and he was like crying and holding on. He's like, I don't want to go. My wife burst into tears at that point. She said that was for her the hardest moment of the movie was watching Spider-Man die.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
So Chris and I would talk just a little bit about this right before we started shooting, and that was, we all went to different showings, but what was the reaction of the audience as soon as the credits started rolling. And for our audience, it was nothing but silence.
Yeah.
Like
Ours
we
as well.
just sat there in shock, and then you get the first post-credit scene where it shows the title and it just fades away.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you kind of have gotten to expect, okay, there's going to be 2. They usually do 2 now.
Yeah.
And the fact that it just went and started, and there was no mid-credit scene.
Nope.
You're just like, okay. And then when they hit that end where you see Nick Fury, and again, once you see Maria Hill disappearing, like, okay, well, Nick is gonna
Be okay.
And then as soon as he starts disappearing too, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're killing me.
It was a surprise. For me, the ones that were really surprising was Spider-Man's death, Black Panther, when he died. That was, I thought, is an amazing way when he's like, this is not the place to die. He's helping her, and all of a sudden he's
poof,
gone. I thought that was amazing. And the post-credit scene, like you said, at the end of the theater, I saw it with Salt Lake Comic Convention's crowd. So the whole movie, people were cheering and they're yelling. And when the deaths started happening, it was just shock after shock. And you think, well, there's not going to be, and there's more. There's another. And people were crying in the audience. You could hear them just sobbing and crying. And when finally the lights went up, the credits started to roll, nobody moved.
Nope.
They just sat there. And you were waiting. You wanted, because you're used to having something kind of funny or poppy and those little stingers.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing like that at all. It was sad. And you walked away going, they did it. They actually were brave enough to have Thanos win, and you can't believe it. You couldn't believe it.
And then
I'm getting chills like sitting here thinking
Right.
about my experience.
And then, like you said, not to kill off the people you were expecting to have killed off, because the whole time I'm just waiting. Cap's gonna die at some point.
You knew.
And they took the people that were gonna have an emotional gut punch, and then they didn't take the people that you were just like, oh well, that person's gone and that person's gone. Those people got left.
Yeah.
And so it was rough. It was rough.
It was rough. And the thing about it is Thanos was so good. His generals were great. They were
Squidward was fantastic.
That was funny.
It was great. It was a lot of. It was just. I thought that was. I literally thought they're equals with the Avengers, and that's the thing. A lot of times when I'm like, if you think about the Avengers first start off with this big huge movie and they beat the bad guys. Then they actually have to create a bad guy themselves that's equal to them because nobody's bad enough for them, so they have to do that.
True.
And now we've got this when Thanos finally showed up, and his generals were as amazing. That battle at Wakanda I thought was just great. I loved it, and I thought the pacing that they had of all the movie was amazing.
Well, the way they kind of broke it up into little vignettes where you stayed with certain groups of people for a good long while to kind of follow their story, and then you would come back, and it wasn't until the end when everything started to become intermixed. I think that was a really good way to edit the movie, because it gave you little breaths almost, where you're like, okay, we're going to follow Thor now, okay. Ooh.
Thor and Rocket, like
and he called him Rabbit the whole time. That was
I love
hilarious.
that. I thought it was great. I will say this is just my thoughts. This is pure speculation, but I think what happened to my mind is Doctor Strange there's a scene where he goes in the future and he sees every possible outcome of how they could beat Thanos. And he comes back and tells Iron Man, it's like there's 14.6 million outcomes. And
we win
in one of those. And I think that he knows the way to win. That's why he gave up the Time Stone. And because that's the only way he knows how to win. He gave up the Time Stone, which then allows Thanos to win. And I think that's how they'll come back eventually at some point. They have to.
No, I think Tony is a key to defeating Thanos somehow.
Yes.
And that's what. And I think Strange knew that.
Well, I'm intrigued because obviously, some, if not all, of the people who disappeared at the end will be brought back at some point, because Spider-Man confirmed has another movie.
Yes.
Some of these
Black Panther.
Black Panther. Some of these are already moving. My hope is that the people who were killed outside of that do not get brought back.
This is my mind. For sure, Loki's dead.
That
was huge.
So,
what a way to start the movie.
Yeah, so in the first 10 minutes, Loki is killed. Thanos kills him. I loved it. It was the redemption of Loki. You see him, he saves his brother Thor. You can see the real love coming through, and he's killed. And his neck was snapped. And so that it wasn't like how everybody else died. He died.
Slow.
Yeah, it was a slow thing. The only thing for me that kind of took me out of the moment, this is very nitpicky, is when Spider-Man died. I was like, he's coming back.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's coming back, and I know Black Panther is coming back. These are some marquee people. So that's my only thing that made it a little nervous. I hope you're right. I hope that they can't bring everybody back.
Because I think that for me anyway, as a writer and creator, it would cheapen what happened to them. Like obviously everybody just disappearing in a pile of ash or whatever it was, that's one thing. But when you actually have a death with meaning, like Loki's, having it be, oh, we'll just turn back time, it cheapens it. So I really hope, if you're listening out there, and I'm sure these are very intelligent men,
Yeah, Kevin's
they won't do
listening.
this. Yeah, well, he watches the show.
Sure,
we know
for sure.
Kevin Feige watches the show, the Russo brothers. I hope that those people who died outside of that we get to have that moment.
Well, I saw an interview where they talked about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and they dropped a little hint that I didn't think about it before. He says, I really want Gamora to be the main focal point. It's no longer, I don't want it to be Star-Lord anymore. So that makes me think, maybe they're not bringing him back. Maybe they won't bring him back, and I don't know how to tell, because I was just shocked. I thought for sure that just was a shocking moment for me when Star-Lord went. I couldn't believe it. And it also made me a little sad because he's probably one of my favorite characters. He kind of messed up the plan a little bit.
Yes.
He got emotional. His emotions got in there, and that kind of changed the plan, which is, I guess, what happens to happen.
But it's such with his character, though. If you watch, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, remember, it was nothing but his strong emotion of loss of somebody that he loved that snapped him out of it. So it totally makes sense that when he hears about Gamora's death, that he would snap out of what was happening and just pummel him.
Well, and just that emotional moment of him making the choice to kill her.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there were so many powerful emotional moments in the movie. It's hard to like I've even forgotten about that one.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought was interesting was like Thanos was such a good character because there's a point where Star-Lord, he promises Gamora he's going to kill her, and he goes to kill her, and he shoots the gun, and just bubbles come out because Thanos has the Reality Stone. And then Thanos is like, I like you. And he just takes off and lets him live. And I thought, it was such that's almost worse than death.
No,
it is like you failed, but I like you, so you can just live the rest of your life knowing that you were a failure on that.
Speaking of worse than death, so loved that Vision and Scarlet Witch were officially an item.
I know.
That was pretty cool. That was sweet. And then the fact that she makes the biggest sacrifice of all of killing someone she loves, and for Thanos to walk in and basically say something, like, what you did doesn't matter.
Well, but it's that he's still kind of, it was creepy because he's still kind of comforting her. Where he's like, when he's kind of touching her head and he's like, no, I understand sacrifice.
Because I'm one of the few people that can understand what you just did. Because he just did
that for the Soul Stone.
Just a few moments prior, he killed Gamora for the Soul Stone, gave up his only love, and he watched Scarlet Witch do it and kill Vision, and then he understood that, that's what makes Thanos such a complex character, because most of them would just be like, whatever, and he actually comforted her for that moment. And I thought that was just a really, you're looking at this guy, and you're like, like I said, he believes what he's doing is right, and he believes what he's doing is right.
All right, so let's switch gears for a second, and let's talk about where we either think it's going to go or where we would like for it to go.
So I've leading up to this, I did the MCU marathon. So I watched all the movies.
You failed.
I did.
I know for sure you failed.
I did not. I unfortunately had this job that pays my bills that kept me from watching. Don't you hate that? There's only 35 hours of my life, that's all.
You got close, though.
I got pretty close. And watching the Thor movies, Thor never really has a chance to grieve anybody who dies ever. Because in the first one, Loki dies, and then the movie ends. And then the second one,
his
mom dies, but then he's got to go fight Malekith. And then Loki dies, but he's got to go take care of Malekith. And then in the third one, or in Age of Ultron, I guess the next time we see him, he's not mourning or anything. He just goes on a weird vision quest. And then the third one, his dad dies, and immediately Hela shows up, and he never has a chance to grieve anyone. So the fact that he had that emotional beat with Rocket of all people, which was so good.
I thought that was amazing, and it did it. And it was such good acting, and you're watching him trying to
be this tough
guy,
pirate god.
And he's losing it.
And the tears coming down, and you realize what the price Thor has paid. Everybody has died. And he's just like talking about it. He said, "What about your mom?" He's like, "She was killed. My dad was killed. My best friend stabbed through the heart. My brother killed." And he's just going through and talking about that. It was an amazing punch.
And so that's what I want to see going forward. Is I want to see continued growth, and I want to see continued consequences. As much as I love all of these characters, and it was so sad to see them all go, I feel like it's just too easy for them to say, well, look at this MacGuffin we have here. Everyone's back.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people are kind of banking on. Like even walking out of the movie, oh, they've got the Infinity Stones. They're all going to come back. Well, and And I don't think they're going to go that route. I think that there will be real consequences. Some of the characters, obviously, Black Panther, Spider-Man, are going to come back. But my son, on the way home from the movie theater about an hour ago, said, well, what if they just really decided to commit to it and you had like Okoye become Black Panther,
Or Shuri,
or you introduced
Miles
Morales, and I was just like, that would be the worst if they did that. That would be like emotionally crushing, but it would be awesome. But I hope they don't go that route. I hope again that there is that growth, and I think that at this point there has to be growth.
Well, the thing that you're saying, what's hard about that is you want to pick and choose, right?
Exactly. You can't.
You want to pick and choose, like, okay, these ones can come back, these ones shouldn't. This makes it real. Whereas I think that's where Marvel has a huge decision to really go here, is like, how much are they going to keep it real? And at the end of the movie, because it always says at the end of the Avengers movies, it says the Avengers will return, and this one it didn't. It said Thanos will return, and so you wonder, like, how much are they going to how are they going to keep it that legit and not bring some people back?
I pray that they stick to their guns, and obviously my theory is that the people who disappeared at the end as a part of the spell will return en masse. They will all be back, every single one of them. That is my prediction. But I predict that people who have died outside and that continue to die outside of that will not.
So looking forward, the next movie that's coming out is Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is tonally going to be very different.
I bet it's going to end with somebody disappearing.
Well, it takes place before.
It's prior to this.
Yeah.
And I think, in my mind, I think this is Ant-Man and Wasp is going to be fun and lively.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be weird though watching that, knowing that what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be the post-credit scene. Is they're going to be like, we just saved the day, and then Scott's going to go, ah,
and I do hope it's Scott.
And I think it's in my mind, it was very interesting to think about that. I thought it was a little bit of a cop-out in the movies. My only real complaint is they asked, they're like, well, where's Hawkeye and where's Ant-Man? They're like, oh, well, they're both, Hawkeye made a deal with the government, and they relocated his family, and Ant-Man's under house arrest. That's how they excuse them for being in the film.
Can't save the world if you're on house arrest. that ankle bracelet,
So
really keep you.
So yeah. Exactly.
Okay, I agree.
But
with that.
I think eventually, my prediction is they are going to come back. They are going to have to fight Thanos one more time, and I think that's where the real deaths are going to happen. I think at that point, Captain America will be killed, and I think there's a high likelihood that Iron Man could be killed, and even Thor, which makes me kind of sad because I feel like they finally have figured out the character of Thor. The first two movies, I felt like, let's look at this beautiful man with long hair and great muscles.
Now look at this beautiful man with short hair.
No, he's like a pirate angel.
Yeah, pirate angel.
Dude, freaking hilarious.
And I think this character is one of the most fascinating in my mind.
I agree.
In the MCU.
Okay, I know I'm backtracking, but so when he gets the Stormbreaker, which it was real cool to see Peter Dinklage as a dwarf that was taller than everyone
I know,
else.
that was a giant.
But when he gets that and he bifrosts his way to Wakanda, I was just like, dude, yes. I was so excited to see the carnage, and just because Thor unleashed his true power in Ragnarok, so it was cool to see that. But there is a very high possibility that, like you're saying, that people who died will come back, and like what you're saying, that the deaths are going to happen. But I think there's also a possibility of it being the gateway to the rest of what the MCU can offer, like introducing new heroes and stuff. So we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp, but the next one coming out is Captain Marvel.
Yes. And that was a huge, at the very end.
That was cool.
At the post-credit screen, Nick Fury, as he's dying, he hits a page button, and you can see the pager kind of drop. I know you're thinking, like, did he say pager? I did say pager. This pager drops, and you can see it sending a message, and then all of a sudden it says message sent, and then it shows the symbol of Captain Marvel. And people were like kind of freaking out that. This is a way, though, for Marvel to move into Phase 4 with a clean slate, which I think they have to do, because the characters are getting a little bit older. And that's a part about comic book characters is you got to keep it fresh. So I think this is their way of hitting Phase 4. Captain Marvel obviously is going to be super important to their Phase 4.
Well, that movie takes place in the 90s.
92.
Yeah.
Well, because that's actually important. Because I did a partial Marvel marathon over the past month or two, where I watched probably 8 of the movies,
Amateur.
And I totally am.
You
I'll
filthy
admit.
casual.
But if you're paying attention, the year 1992 is very, very important because it's referenced in like 6 of the movies.
Wait, is 92 the year that Tony's parents died? I
No,
thought
that
they
was
died
91. That was December of 91.
December 16, 1991.
But 1992 is mentioned in several other films, particularly linked to Nick Fury. That's when he lost his eye, was in 1992. That's when a lot. So in several of the movies, they talk about 1992, and so it's very interesting that Captain Marvel is taking place in '92, probably tying into all of this stuff.
Yep. So we'll have Captain Marvel, and then whatever they're calling Avengers 4 will happen. I think Captain Marvel is going to become. I mean, because I think she's the leader of the Avengers in the comics right now.
She is, I believe.
And so I think that's what's going to happen, because it was always kind of Tony and Cap as the leader. So I think Captain Marvel is going to become the new leader with these younger, newer heroes.
Well, and then there was an interview with the Russo brothers, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, where they talked about Captain Marvel, and they said that personality-wise, she's the closest to Steve Rogers, where she is very,
yeah, for sure.
Where she is very hopeful, very like, okay, no, we are the heroes.
There was one thing that the show and trailers that didn't happen in the movies. I don't know if you guys picked up on that.
Was that the whole hero thing? Right?
With Hulk running in
With
there?
the Hulk, which
Hulk
obviously
running.
didn't happen.
So in this movie, the Hulk doesn't. I actually told my wife. I told her before the movie started. They show the Hulk Buster Iron Man. I said I think that's Bruce Banner. And I called it.
Oh,
I
nice.
said I think it's Bruce Banner.
Look at you, bro.
Yeah, I got it. And then he doesn't turn into the Hulk. And there's that trailer where you see him running with them in Wakanda.
Yeah.
That never happens in the movie, which I thought was really surprising. And I think it's interesting how they played the Hulk character, because he was so strong. At the very beginning, he fights Thanos, and Thanos
gets
trashed, and he starts bleeding. The Hulk starts bleeding, which you don't see a lot. That's a rarity in the comic books to see that. When that happens, you know that something's really big's happened.
So I liked so along those same lines, there was another thing where they show shots later in the movie where Thor's got the eye patch.
Yeah. But
he doesn't. And so in their shots, they digitally put that in, which I think is clever. I really like the eye patch. I don't like that. I'm bummed. That was the one thing that I am bummed that he doesn't have the eye patch anymore, because I thought it was cool.
Right.
I think it's funny that Rocket has so many numerous body parts.
Right.
How much for the gun? It's not for sale. How much for the arm?
I'm gonna get that.
I'm gonna get that arm. Oh my gosh, it was seeing all these characters come together was great, but it is a very much a deviation from the Marvel formula, but it works so well.
And just a joke though, I think Rocket does get that arm. Because
because
Winter Soldier disappears and the arm is there, and Rocket's the only. I think he's going to
get the arm.
So.
Oh my god!
All right. Well, so obviously, positive movie. We all loved it. Go and see it if you haven't already. If you haven't already, shame on you for watching this, because we just ruined it for you.
Yeah,
Seriously.
definitely.
But share your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks, Chris, for coming down.
It's always a pleasure. I'm always happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody.
Don't forget to check out Chris Provost's YouTube channel, Provost Park Pass. All about Disneyland theme parks. It's a lot of fun. The last video that you guys put out was Top 10 Snacks.
Yeah, that's right. My wife actually did that one. I was really proud of her.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just to let you guys know. So I edit those, and it was a real problem because I got so hungry watching those things. Like when it got to the mozzarella sticks, I don't know what it was, but I called my wife and I was like, "Hey, we should have mozzarella sticks for dinner." So she goes to the store, gets some frozen ones, and they just weren't.
It wasn't the same.
No, I was so sad. So thanks a lot.
Sorry
So
about
get
that.
hungry and watch Chris's videos.
Thank you.
All right, we are geek.
Still mad about mozzarella sticks.
Bye-bye.